Welcome to the Farmer's Kitchen. It is the Farmer's Kitchen.
Yes, it is.
You know, there's farmers' banks, there's farmers' markets, there's farmers' cornfields. We own it all.
That's right.
Farmer's Kitchen. Today, we're going full farmer mode.
Yes, we are.
The other day, we were fishing, and we were looking for a greasy spoon. Back in the days when we were on the road with fisheries, my old buddy, Kerry Prather, he wanted to find a plate lunch. You ever hear plate lunch?
No.
Oh, you gotta have a plate lunch.
Okay.
So we found a place in Western Kentucky that had what?
Fried pork tenderloin. So good.
Plate lunch.
Oh, that's
Along
a plate
with
lunch.
that, they had greens, they had all the extras and so on and so forth. And you said, when we come back, let's make that. So we're in the middle of getting a pig processed. So there's gonna be a lot of pig stuff coming
That's
up.
right.
So tonight, we're gonna make a good, solid country dish. Now, some people might call this chicken fried pork, like a chicken fried steak.
It's so good.
It's just so good.
So good.
You can't beat it. We're gonna have greens with this. Now, there's several different ways you can make greens. I'm gonna do it the way that I like to do it, and it involves more pork. You gotta have tiny little pieces of jowl in there, or ham hock.
That's right.
But you gotta have some little pieces of pork in there. To get this whole thing started, Ms. Farr, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
I'm gonna take this hock, and it's already been seasoned and smoked. I'm just gonna drop that in and let some of that fat render out of there. And that's gonna be our base. Then later we're gonna cut that up in tiny little cubes to flavor our greens.
Yummy.
So I'm just gonna let some of the fats and some of that taste release out of it. I'm also gonna put just a little bit of lard. Now we're releasing the flavors and the fats from this jowl. It's gonna be salty. We're gonna get our salty flavor from there. We don't have to add too much salt to this because of the flavor we're gonna get from this.
Smells good.
Oh, doesn't it though?
Yeah.
Good country ham smell. But first, Mrs. Farmer, if you'll cut that sweet Vidalia onion up into onion rings, just thin onion rings. And it depends on how you want your onions in your greens. Some people like them larger pieces, some people like them in smaller. Now I'm gonna do a switch. You put that in and I'll take these out. All right, so now I put just a little bit more lard in here, and I'm gonna saute these onions till they're nice and soft and they release all their wonderful flavor and sugars. Now, if you look at our cookware, this is cast iron. It's just enameled, and I really like that to cook things like this. I like to use this pot for spaghetti and things like that.
Use it for everything.
This one's good for anything. It's just a skillet that's enameled. So let's let those go. Now here is a quick peek at us rendering lard from a pig we had not too long ago. So let's take a look at how easy it is to render your own lard. But rendering lard, it still happens all over the place, and I think it's going to get more and more popular. When people are finding out this is so much better than any of the processed oils, it's good for you. It's, listen to this, heart healthy.
Really?
So, you know, anything in moderation. But again, the omega-3s, the vitamin D. Now this is going to be a fairly lengthy process, but again, the lower and slower you go, the lighter it's going to be. If you put it in a hot pan like that and render it real quick, you're going to get a little more color in your lard. And it's just, you know, it's just as good, but it is going to have a little more piggy flavor. Now you can go to your butcher shop and ask for pig fat, and guess what? They will hook you up. All right, now look what we have here.
Wow.
That actually makes a noise. You hear it sighing and hissing and popping towards the end, you know you're there.
That's amazing what it did. It's like little potatoes.
Here.
Could I eat those?
Yeah, you can eat them. So these are what everybody's heard about the cracklins. And that's the noise they make while they're cooking over the top of the lard. Now, when we get this all off, we're gonna ladle this up and put it in small jars because, you know, typically when we're cooking with lard, we're cooking with it in the bottom of a pan like you would use vegetable oil or whatever. And this is a small batch, of course, because we're just showing you how we do it. But the next step now is to set these aside. You'll take you some cheesecloth. We'll use 2 or 3 layers. Put you a strainer, pour it into your jar, and basically let it sit there till it cools, and then it will kind of become like bacon grease. Now, that is not the white clear stuff. But, okay, Taryn.
I could eat these.
Okay, we got enough for maybe one more jar. Let's do another jar. What we're gonna do right here is we're gonna take our cracklins, just because we can't resist it. We're gonna pour them off in a skillet, take some salt, And we're just basically gonna turn these over and get them nice and crisp. You talk about good, man. You put cracklins in cornbread? Are you kidding me? I like onions too. All right, now we're going to take these pieces of jowl, and you can use hock, you can use whatever you want, but you want it to be smoked, obviously. Dice those up into small squares that will go into our greens. All right, now I'm going to put just a little bit of chicken broth in here, not much. I'd say 1/3 of a cup. All right, I'll tell you what, let's take that jowl and go ahead and dump that in here. All right, I'm going to hand you this.
Okay.
Nikki, if you want to tear it up, get rid of some of those stems. So what we're going to do now, Mrs. Farmer, we got some collard greens, we've got some spinach, and we have some kale. We are in a CSA group, Community Supported Agriculture. That is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
It is.
Because we use most of our property now to raise cattle and sheep, so we don't have the room on this hilly country to have big garden space.
Right.
So we have done that, and that's where we're getting some of those fresh, wonderful organic vegetables. Okay, now I keep adding liquid as we go along. Now this is going to cook down. You don't want them to be soup.
Right.
So we're showing you how to cook these things at a fast pace tonight because we've got a half-hour show. You want to let these cook down. If you want to, you can have them done in a half hour and they're still edible. Now they're going to cook down, and they're going to cook down, they're going to cook down. Collard greens, spinach, and kale
Yum.
is what we had in here. Let's just let that go. Now, I'm going to start thinking about my other pork. There's a boneless pork loin chop, and we're going to turn it into something wonderful. We want to tenderize it, we want to flatten it out, and then we're going to chicken fry it.
Hey.
So we're just going to pound it. Now you could put plastic over it, but I'm not, because I don't like to eat plastic. I'll clean the counter off real good, I promise, Mrs. Farmer.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not just pounding it out, I'm tenderizing it. I want to be able to cut this up with a fork. So look what we did. Here's where we started, and that's where we ended up. Look what a pretty cut of meat that is.
Oh, yeah.
So what does this do? It tenderizes the meat, and it makes it so you can cut it with a fork. Now I'm going to come back with some salt and pepper. Something else I'm going to do is take some poultry seasoning. The kind of poultry seasoning that I mix up, it's got some paprika in it, but it's got thyme, and it has sage in it.
You love that.
And that really adds
Yeah.
when you're doing your pork in this manner. To me,
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to turn it over, season the other side. You know what's coming, don't you, Miss
I
Farmer?
do.
It's good stuff. Mrs. Farmer, I'm going to need just a little bit of milk, if
Okay.
you will.
I have a little bit.
All right, I'm going to pop my egg out.
Is that good?
Where have we seen this before? When we do Parmesan or Wiener Schnitzel.
That's right.
We have some flour, we
Okay.
have some egg and milk, and if you will, take some crackers and chop them up in your handy dandy cowboy chopper.
I will.
So I'm going to take our pork and I'm just going to put it in a little bit of flour.
Is that enough for you? Or you need more?
That's perfect. Then I'm going to take our poultry seasoning and I'm going to flavor my crackers with that. And I'm talking quite a bit here. I'm talking probably 3/4 of a teaspoon. That's going to be what you get when you pull that out of there. If you want to put some panko in there too, just to kind of get a mix. I'm going to dump my crackers out over here. Just to make sure, I'm going to put some more seasoning right there on top. I really want this flavor to come across. From the flour to the egg, from the eggs to the crackers. Oh, it looks beautiful.
Yummy.
Get that nice and evenly spread out directly to our pan. So your pork's not going to take long because it's nice and thin. We pounded it out. Oh, I can't
Yum.
wait to get some of that. Now I'm going to take my balsamic vinegar, and I got some high quality balsamic vinegar. I don't know how much that is, probably 4 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons.
Yeah.
Taste as you go along. If you want to try, a lot of people use just regular white vinegar or apple cider, knock yourself out. But you might want to try this. Meanwhile, I'm going to use tongs.
Oh, yum.
Tell me that's not beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Now, this has got some salt in it. I like a little bit more, so I'm going to take just a little bit of a chicken bouillon cube, just to bring in a little more salt. Oh,
Yummy.
Are you kidding me? All right, Mrs. Farmer. Recently, somebody really woke me up. On our Facebook page, they said, hey, you know, can you walk us through some of the side stuff that you do? They said, not everybody cooks all the time.
Yeah.
So we're going to back up and show how you make your mashed potatoes. These are just russets that you boil. What are you going to do, Mrs. Farmer?
Well, today I do different every time. Sometimes just butter and milk, but I have a lot of butter here, which is about a half a stick. And these we've already boiled. They've been sitting here for a while. So I'm going to throw the butter in. And we're not going to do it with the mixer today. I'm going to do a hand mixer. Okay. So I let these go quite a while. And I'm going to add, I got some sour cream.
Perfect.
So sometimes
beautiful,
that makes,
wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, they give them a little whiter appearance.
Yeah.
And sour cream.
Yes.
Think about this, your sour cream and your butter.
Already
and
there.
potatoes. Yep.
Yep, and just a little bit of, sometimes I use whipping cream, half and half.
Now you can whip these with your electric
Yeah.
mixer and make them just as beautiful as you want, but I'm telling you what. All right, so we just took a little bit of our oil, some chicken broth. How do you make your gravy?
Yeah, and I got, this is cornstarch, equal parts of that with some water.
All right, now I'll tell you what I'm going to do. While you're doing that, I'm going to add some of my chicken flavor.
Yeah, and this
so
is,
you just put drippings in there?
And we added a little, what
little
you have
chicken
left,
broth?
your chicken broth, and just turn that down. I think we're pretty good here. We got some thick gravy, just
Did you
enough.
see how long that took?
A couple seconds for me and you.
You're the gravy expert, and boom, it's done.
Done.
That's it.
Enough gravy for that.
Cornstarch and water. Let's make a little swimming pool in our potatoes, as we used to say as kids. I know what you're thinking, Miss Farmer. I'm thinking you want gravy on that.
I do. I like gravy on everything.
You love your gravy. So let's just go ahead and put some gravy
Yummy.
in as well. Now that, look at that.
That's a
Are
good
you
dinner.
serious?
I'm excited.
Does that look like something you get in a country diner?
This looks better.
Dig in, Miss Farmer.
I'm so ready.
You notice, Miss Farmer?
That's
Cut it with
delicious.
your fork.
So good. Try your greens. That's wonderful. That is
Greens?
delicious. Wow.
You know, we've talked about a lot of things tonight. We've talked about jowl. We've talked about lard. We've talked about loin, boneless.
Delicious.
There's so many cuts.
Right.
We've done the how to cut up a beef thing. Let's explore tonight how to process a pig, part by part. How about
Yeah,
that?
good idea.
While we eat this, we'll be right back. We're back in Garrett County for the Leonard and Mark show. Now, last time we were here, they cut up a beef. Such a positive response to that. We get people from all over the world that are watching this segment on beef. Guess what? Today, who we got right here?
Large Marge.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, I like my pork, and you say it's not going to take as long with pig.
Shouldn't take long. Yep, pretty simple.
So I'm going to step back and let's get this process going.
All right, sounds great. Just going to use our low rater to drop the pig down. So now we have two separate halves of the pig. What we have here is the soot off the pig and the kidneys. It's good, clean fat. People make bird feed out of this, but really the best use for it is to render it down, make lard. So Mark's cutting a third rib here. That's going to separate the shoulder from the rest of the carcass. And he's going to cut right behind the H-bone on the pig here. So this is the front shoulder and the head attached to the pig. Mark's going to remove the head, and then we'll break down the head to show you different things that we can do with that. So when we have the head, there's two or three different things we can do with this. First thing you'll notice is this big piece of meat here. This is the jowl, but most commonly you hear jowl bacon, and this is the jowl. Now what you would do with this is you would run it through a cure, maybe let it soak or use an injector, and smoke it, and then you would slice it just like you would bacon. Underneath this jowl is a little piece of heaven it's called cheek meat. I don't know if you've ever had cheek meat, Tim, but it's very tender, great piece of meat. This is the whole shoulder. So So he's just using his knife to kind of go along the seam and the bone of the neck bones, leaving as much meat as possible on the Boston butt and the picnic. We have the neck bones, which is great for stock and stew meat and things like that. So here's just a flap of meat that's going to come off the picnic and the Boston butt here. And you can use this for country ribs, just a lean piece of meat here. You'd use it for sausage, great for sausage. Now what we're going to have here is Mark take off the copa, and then we're going to make some steaks for the copa. So the copa, what the copa is, this is a nice, it's pretty much like the chuck eye on a beef, but it's well marbled, it's tender, and has great flavor. We have a couple different parts that we're going to remove. We're going to take the shank off from the picnic. And what we've done with it, we've cross-cut it. This would be great for braising in your oven. See a lot of meat in there, a lot of lean meat, so that's what makes it great for braising. This is the picnic. What a lot of people would do with this is they would just cut it in half, make a 2 to 3 pound roast, or it would be added to trim to make sausage. So what we have here is we have the whole Boston butt. You know, this probably weighs around 10 to 12 pounds. Perfect for your home smoker. You know, you're going to get roughly 60% of your yield off this, and you know, it's going to be great for pulled pork. You know, if you just want to make a sandwich out of it, whatever you want to do. So Mark's just following the seam of the copa. It's a very small seam. Restaurants a lot of times use it for steaks, but you know, this is the copa as its whole. We're just going to cut it into, you know, about 1-inch steaks here, and we'll show you what they look like. So if we look here, you see those perfect little medallions.
I would imagine for grilling that would just be amazing.
Yeah, if you have a date, this might be what you need to take her on. Now this is the midsection of the pig. So what we have here is the rib section and the loin, the sirloin tip here, or the sirloin roast on a pig. We have the spare ribs and the baby back ribs. We also have the pork belly, which would be cut off and made into bacon. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this in half, separate the loin from the belly. Now in the loin section, this here is the tenderloin. A lot of times, and it's often mistaken in stores that the tenderloin is much larger. When you see a tenderloin that's this big and weighs about 7 pounds in a store, what they're actually talking about is a boneless loin, which we'll show you here in a second. But the tenderloin, you know, it weighs roughly a pound and a half. Off really big pigs, you can get up to 3 pounds, but very small, tender piece of meat. We'll have Mark go ahead and remove this for you. He's just going to follow the backbone down the loin here. You can see that once he gets it cut, he can basically just pull it away from the seams. It's one of the greatest pieces on the pork. We're going to remove the sirloin. We're going to start this joint here and break it off from the loin. So we're going to remove this bone out of the sirloin. If you wanted a sirloin roast, this is what it would be. I would suggest to take the bone out just because the bone is so large in here, and there's a lot of part of the bone you can't see because it runs throughout the muscle. So this is the sirloin roast, really perfect for a family, you know, right around 3 to 4 pounds, lean, it has a nice fat cap on it, great piece of meat here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the rib section from the loin section. So we're going to start with the rib section here. Now, if we were to take this bone section off here, these would be where you would get your baby back ribs, but we're going to leave these on for the moment, and we're going to make bone-in pork chops off of these. And we're going to show you what a chime pork chop looks like. Does that look pretty good, Tim?
Oh yeah, I know what I'm having tonight.
These are your typical bone-in rib chops. Well, a lot of times what you'll see chefs do is they'll take the bit of meat off the end here and kind of make a handle. So what a chef would call this is a French chop. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the meat off the bone, exposing the bone here. It kind of makes like a little handle here. So what we have left is the loin. What we'll do is we'll take off this bone part right here, we'll take off the chime, and we'll make this into a boneless loin here. This is a very difficult thing to do, be able to get this jagged bone with so many different vertebrae going down the loin out without gouging up the loin. Mark did a great job here. So this would be your typical loin roast. You know, a lot of times what they're doing is they're just cutting a steak off this and frying it up, but we'll leave this whole. there's several things that you could do with it. You could cut your boneless chops off here, or you can leave it whole, which is a great thing to do too, and make a roast off of it. The next part may be everyone's favorite part. What we have here is the belly, and right now it's still got the spare ribs attached. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the spare ribs off. He's just going to take his knife and go around the bone, keeping his knife and blade against the bone, so he's not gouging the belly, but he's leaving some meat on the spare ribs, because no one wants to eat spare ribs with no meat on it. So this is the full spare rib. He's going to take the bone off here, the breastplate bone, and then he's going to cut the spare ribs in half. This is easier to cook with. If you have a large family, a full spare ribs is good, but small family, you'd want to cut them in half. That way you can maximize the use of them. How you're going to make bacon off this is you're either going to use two methods. You're going to inject it, or you're going to let it sit and brine for a few days, let it soak up that salt, sugar, whatever your spices may be, and it's going to come out the same, looking the same, and then you just slice very thin, and that's where you get your bacon from. So we're moving on to the ham. We have the shank still attached to the ham, and then we have the actual ham up here. Then you can see where the sirloin was removed. Now, the ham can be done in several different ways, but a lot of times what we have now is what we call city ham and fresh ham. So right now this would be a fresh ham. What we're going to do is we're going to make this a boneless ham. We're going to cure it and make it into a city ham. But Mark's going to remove the shank now. This is a harder piece to take off if you're not familiar with where that joint is. And this is what your final shank's going to look like. A couple things that you could do with this ham instead of making a city ham out of it. You can make ham steaks, which are great. You can make ham roast, 2 to 3 pound roast for your family. So he's removed that H-bone. Now what he's going to do is he's going to run along that leg bone and remove it. Does that look good for your dog? You'll see he's just going down the seam as that's popping open there. And what we would do, you would leave the ham like this. You would let it soak like this. That way it gets in the inside. You don't ever want to soak it without removing the bone, opening it up first. We would wrap it up, put it in the smokehouse, cook it for 16 to 17 hours and smoke it. And then we'd be able to either cut it in half, make Easter hams, or slice it for deli meat.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of folks out there have been wanting to know each part of the pig. Now we know. Thank you so much. What are we going to cut up next?
Maybe lamb. What's the lamb?
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. This, to me, is as good as any restaurant.
Oh, it's delicious.
I'm not saying that just to ring
Oh,
my
it's
own
delicious.
bell, but
It
how
was
is it,
delicious.
Mrs. Farmer?
Delicious. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Now I need to eat it.
You know what? If you want to see more recipes like this, more how-tos like how to cut up a pig, how to make
Right.
lard, so on and so forth, where would you go, Mrs. Farmer?
I go to timfarmerscountrykitchen.com.
You do not.
I do all
Yes,
the time.
You do. I've seen
I do.
you it. We would like you to be our Facebook friend, but we know it's hard.
It's really
It's
hard.
very difficult. There's, 17 steps?
There is.
What are the steps?
Like.
Oh, so there's not
There's
17.
one step, yeah, I
Just
was
hit
teasing.
like. Talk to us about what's going on. We put our recipes on there Monday morning. We also have a sister page, Cast Iron Cooking with Tim Farmer. That's all cast iron, and people put the recipes on there
Oh,
from
yeah.
cast iron as well. Well, Mrs. Farmer, we know how to cut up a pig.
We do.
We know how to cook one.
Right.
We know how to eat one.
That's exactly right.
So let's do that.
Okay.
But first, I hate to say this, half hour's over.
Wow.
So we have to say good night.
That's right.
It's all about
Good times.
good friends.
Really good eats.
See you next week on Tim Farmer's Country Kitchen. Dig in, Mrs.
I
Farmer.
will. These are really good.
You know what? Next week, let's go buy another plate.
You want to?
We'd have 2 plates.
Wow,
You
that'd
think
be
we can
nice.
afford it?
No, I'd say stick with one. I like sharing.
To order a cookbook, email timfarmerck@gmail.com.